Many of us fall prey into this naive assumption. We assume that in order to phrase the sound the way that it was intended to sound, the movement must mimic the way it is notated. But unfortunately, that cannot be furthest from the truth. Welcome back to Joy of Practicing. I am your host, Ferdi Taran. Let's dive into it. Here, for example, when one is a visual processor like myself, the tendency is to imagine that it must produce the intended sound if I mimic how it looks. It looks like there's 3 undulation. But that's just chaos. Because you're pretty much just glazing some notes in an effort to shape it. So because your palm moves first, you're not completely there. So yeah, the note that you glaze makes less sound and it gives this appearance of being shaped. But that's not really control. You can't just glaze your palm hoping that will continue. This is when spacing is super handy. By the term spacing, it means that you're gauging the distance and measuring the timing in between the notes, propelling yourself to the next key with measured velocity. Each and every time I allow myself to feel the surface of the key before taking action on it. All in one continuous organic movement. It's not spastic. It's not. Here, I'm not even moving. I don't have any freedom because I'm stuck here in another position. Yes, this propels me to the next note, but I'm holding myself stuck here instead of. And if you remember from the previous episode, it's really just a simple rule that you have to remember. Before the thumb you go in so that you could come down, and then after the thumb you go out. So the thumb is free. The gist of it is that the expression lies in the sound, not in the gesture. Sure, the visual helps when it produces the right sound, but it only carries over for so long. Look, what touches and relates is not the frantic display of body emoting. It is the quality of the sound frequency and the expression it carries. Okay, take a look at this figuration. The way that the visual mind will process it, this is an undulation, and because it scoops out, so one will attempt this. But that's really, really busy, and there's a lot of movement. You're really moving too much. Like even in the lucky attempt, if you do it in some lucky attempt that you try to shape it, it's really not the way that you really want to do it. Now, from the previous demonstration, you go in before the thumb, and then you go out, so you set your thumb free, right? But this movement's all finished. I have my D to E, E to A. I'm sorry, E to F, F to A. Now, let's gauge the furthest distance. In this case, it's A to D, right? So, how am I gonna move between this? And I have to come out after the thumb, so this thumb is hanging free. So, usually, one will go dip until the end of the world, and then this will become far because you're stuck here pretty much. But if you gauge, okay, that's how I finish the movement here, and then that already itself transport me to my fifth finger. So how am I going to move here? Because once I'm on my D, getting to E is easy. So actually, instead of doing your right, so that creates the undulation, not your wrist undulating. Very important to remember and be aware though, is that even you're constantly moving from one note to the other, the relationship between the key and your finger when it enters is always straight. I'm not doing it on the side. It's always straight. And this is very good because usually in this situation I would probably pivot over here and make this like, but this is going to create all kinds of problems for you because essentially that's glazing. There's a lot of tension in the and you still have the pedal to help you. If you listen carefully, I myself glazed some of those measures. Here, this I tend to glaze, and you can hear the quality of it. It's not the same sharpness as... Let me attempt to do this correctly. See, that's a different thing as... That's one of the way that I would explain it. But you guys have to understand that piano playing is subjective. And every experience and every physicality is different. So all these information you have to filter and re-articulate so that you truly understand it for yourself. Otherwise, you're putting a show to impress, not to connect. That's all for today's episode. If there's anything that is not clear or out of grasp, please don't hesitate to send your questions to joyofpracticing@gmail.com. Enjoy your practicing. I hope you have the bestest of time with yourself in the practice room. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.